Boker Tov, Shalom Aleichem. Welcome everybody to the Aliyah day. What are we doing here? Oh, there we go. We have camera angle dysphoria. What's going on with that? Why do I have my camera angle like that, I wonder? Let me change that. Hold on a second. I didn't notice that at the beginning. Let me move this around. Excuse me. Sorry. I don't know why the camera angle is like that. Let me fix it. There we go. That's better. That's so much better. It's very strange. Okay. Well, there you go. I was going to say the birds are singing, everything's perfectly awesome, but my camera angle was all messed up. From that, I don't know why. Okay, it's there. Hold on a second. Let me fix something right quick. I think this is the answer. There we go. Now we're back to where we're supposed to. Okay. I had to reset everything, and then it reset to the default position. So that's why that was all like that. And this is why we need a producer, right? Okay, all right. Welcome everybody to the Aliyah Day. Glad you're here. Sorry for that little glitch in the matrix there. Let me make sure this is doing what it's supposed to be doing as well. Let me see. All right. Okay, now we have the proper microphone is selected as well. Is that selected correctly? Yes, it is. That is selected correctly. Yes, it is. So you probably hear me better. All right, so there we go. Baruch HaShem. What was I talking about? Oh, yes, good morning. Glad you're here. Welcome to the Aliyah Day. Sigh. Everything was going great. Now, my thumbnail looked nice and fresh this morning. Charlie is a producer, right, Charlie? He is, but he wants to take more of a supervisor role. He's tired of punching buttons with his little flippers. All right, let's say good morning, everybody. Oh, let me say this. We're going to get into the discussion of Abraham remarrying after now the passing of Sarah. So Abraham's second wife is the topic, and her name happens to be Keturah. And we're going to learn about Keturah. We're going to learn about this whole idea of remarriage with Abraham, marriage. This whole section of Torah really is about marriage, obviously. So we'll be diving into this, learning some topics today. What does Judaism have to say about Keturah? Who is she? What does Judaism have to say about marriage? Or I should say, in this case, remarriage. And in this situation, of course, Abraham is not exactly a spring chicken. He's up there in years. He's now a widower. And so, what does that look like? At least in the Torah portion we're going to be discovering here today. So just some insights we're going to get into. We're going to read and see where it takes us in all of that. But as we get underway here, we're going to say Guten Tag to everybody. And buongiorno, Nelly Grace. Guten Morgen to you, Chris and Crystal and Joe Plunkett. Good morning to you, Greg. Bonjour, Heather. Hope you and Zachary are doing great. Guten Morgen to you, Yonina, who's formerly from Georgia. Good morning to Yochanan and Tirza. Hope you guys are doing great. Good morning, Kara. Boker Tov to you, Donna and Ami. Guten Morgen to you, Keturah and Donna and Brenda and John. Hello to you. Who else we have? Miriam. Guten Morgen to you, Yosef, and may your mother be completely restored to health in the merit of Messiah Yeshua. Good morning, Stormborn. Yes, the countdown is back. I've switched back to the original programming here, so we are back on track, and prayerfully everything is good. Good morning, Marcus and Zaken Yagal and Zaken Rafford. By the way, I know you're out there somewhere. Somewhere. Good morning, Rebbetzin, the butterfly. Good morning, Kathy. and Kimba Mint, and Jacqueline Keys. Guten Morgen to you, Leah. Hope you and Shmuel are doing great. There's Shmuel. Top of the morning to you, sir. Zatwit to you. Good morning, Andrew De Leon, Mehmet, Boker Tov. And good morning to, who else do we have? Sarah Merritt. Hope you and Shane are doing fantastic. Good morning, Kayla and Rob. Did I say good morning, Jean? Good morning, Jean. Good morning, Micaiah. And let's see. Anna, Boker Tov to you, or Anna? See, now I'm all messed up. Is it Anna or Anna? In this case, I think it might be Anna. Anyway, good morning to you, Cactus Annie. Good to see you this morning. That's kind of like, what was the lady that survived the Titanic? Not Annie Oakley, but what was her name? She was Cactus Annie. Reminds me of that. I just can't think of the name now. Yolanda Boker Tov. Sonia Boker Tov to you. Glad you're here this morning. Hope all is well in your world. There's Anna, Texas style. Thank you. And then so Anna Smith is Anna, and then Anna is Anna. So Baruch HaShem. So Anna and Anna. There you go. Who was the lady? Molly Brown. Thank you very much, Chris and Crystal. Thank you, Molly Brown. Cactus Annie reminds me of that. Not Shelley Winters. Who is Shelley Winters? Molly Brown. She, the unsinkable Molly Brown. That's right, because she survived now it's all coming back to me. She survived the Titanic and became the unsinkable Molly Brown. You're welcome. You see the value information that you get here at the Aliyah Day of Lapid Judaism. It's psychology, it's history, it's theology, and all of that. It's a whole package. Good morning, Ariella. Good to see you. Good morning, Hanani. That's awesome. So yeah, so the unsinkable Cactus Annie. So let's look at the insights here. Cactus Annie, by the way, have you told us where you're from? I'm just curious. Are you from Texas? Did we know this? I'm not sure. Can't recall. So anyway, let's look at our insights here. Abraham remarries. This is from chapter 25 of the book of Bereshit. And here I'm going to be reading here from the Keil Tumash, okay? So it says, or as we say in Spanish, it says, oh, Cactus Annie is from Wisconsin. Oh, okay. Are there a lot of cacti in Wisconsin? There are a lot of cacti here. Just wondering. It says here, Abraham married Hagar again. So, Keturah is in fact Hagar. So it says here, Abraham married Hagar again after Sarah died. Now, when he had married her the first time, her legal status had been that of a bondwoman, but because he had granted her freedom when he banished her, he was now remarrying her as a free woman. Nonetheless, in order to keep their future children from having the legal status of inheritors, he did not marry her as a full wife, but rather as a concubine, without the conditions of a marital contract. So there was no ketubah, okay? Hagar's nickname now was Keturah, alluding to the fact that although she had at one point lapsed back into idolatry of her Egyptian family, she had since repented, and her deeds were now as pleasing to God as the fragrance of incense. And the word for incense in Hebrew is ketoret, hence the name Keturah from the word ketoret. This nickname also alluded to the fact that she had bound, Qatar, her reproductive organs ever since Abraham sent her away to ensure that no other man would ever have relations with her. In other words, she was chaste, as it were. For both these reasons, Abraham did not hesitate now to remarry her. Okay? Now, evidently, she was still of childbearing years. I don't know if we know the age of Keturah at this juncture, otherwise known as Hagar. I don't know. We could probably figure it out timeline-wise, but nevertheless, she was still capable of having children because she had many other kids. She bore to him Zimron, Yakshan, Medan, Midian, Yishbak, and Shua. Does Midian sound familiar? Good morning, Levi. Good to see you this morning. Good morning, Greg. Midian, the Midianites, and Moshe would later marry a daughter of Midian named Zipporah. Zipporah, and the Midianites, by the way, would end up living in Africa. So Moshe married a African woman, a black woman. That's what we believe to be the case. You could almost, I guess, seems like I've read somewhere that the Midianites were akin to the Ethiopians. So there are people out there who want to make Jews and Judaism about race, right? So the Jews in Israel are not the real Jews. The real Jews are from someplace else, and blah, blah, yada, yada, yada. And the reality is that Judaism is not about race. And as we're just reading, there's a lot of interracial activity going on here. You have Abraham, who most likely was of a lighter, let's just say a lighter complexion, coming from more of a Middle Eastern world. We could, surmise, who, is now married to an Egyptian woman. And then later, and they have as one of their children a Midian, and Midian is going to develop, of course, the Midianites, and they're going to migrate to that area of, Africa. And then later Moshe is going to marry. So there's a bunch of interracial things going on here. There are some that say that the queen of Sheba, the Ethiopian woman, was one of the either wives or what have you of King Solomon. There's some who say that. So in any case, there's lots of interracial stuff going on here. So it says, Yakshan was the father of Sheba and Dedan, and the sons of Dedan became the leaders of the Asherim, tent dwellers who lived in tent camps, Letushim, nomadic dwellers who spread out in all directions, and Leomim, other nations. Okay, so let's go back and read some insights here related to this particular topic as we find in the Ketumash. David said the Midianite probably kin to the Druze based on recent anthropologic studies. That is true. Yeah. In fact, that's what the Druze claim themselves. The Druze claim that their forefather was Jethro, and he's considered like their prophet. And so the Druze, that's why the Druze have an Arabic, you could say, appearance, but they themselves are not really Arabs. David, that's what I understand, that the Druze do not consider themselves Arabs. I've been to the Druze, Rabbi Tzina and I have been to the Druze village there near Haifa and Carmel. But if I'm wrong about that, please let me know. And by the way, just a little talk about psychology here. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're wrong about a fact, it's okay. If you're wrong about a fact because, you're wrong, you have your facts wrong because maybe you were misinformed or you misunderstood or something, that's okay. It's okay. Just say, hey, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. I stand corrected. I thought we won our independence from, Japan. I didn't realize it was Great Britain. But now that I know that it was, in fact, it wasn't Yamamoto that we defeated, but it was, Cromwell. Okay, great. Right. Or whatever. We didn't fight the Battle of Tokyo, but Yorktown. Great. Okay, now that we know that, I stand corrected. It's amazing to me how many people out there don't know anything, or they've been misinformed, or what have you, about a given topic, and when they're corrected with actual fact, it's remarkable how they dig their heels in and like, no, it's just amazing. And by the way, I use the term ignorant a lot. I will tell people, you're just ignorant about this topic, and I realize that the word, being told that you're ignorant is like, but see, here's the thing: ignorance is a thing. People are ignorant. I am ignorant about brain surgery. You do not want me operating on your brain. You really don't want me providing you any medical aid at all, aside from, basic, like, giving you a Band-Aid, because I'm generally ignorant about things of medicine. That's okay. I'm ignorant. I don't know. So if you actually do know, then I'm willing for you to tell me. The thing is that ignorance can be cured. Stupidity cannot. Stupidity cannot be cured. But ignorance can be cured. And I just felt like telling you as a PSA, don't be afraid or offended of your ignorance, in the sense that if you find that you're ignorant on a topic, just accept that reality and now educate yourself on that topic, and therefore heal your ignorance. It is remarkable to me how many people out there are completely ignorant about a topic, and yet they're so opinionated about it. And then when somebody who actually knows something about that topic comes and corrects them, they dig their heels in. It's just amazing. Okay, enough of the soapbox. So Abraham, again, it says literally these words, Abraham again, means Abraham enhanced, alluding to the fact that it was only after Abraham enhanced the quality of his own divine service that he was able to spiritually elevate Hagar. We must first elevate ourselves in order to elevate someone else. That's great. What a great insight. That if we want to elevate other people, we ourselves have to be elevated. Okay? It says her deeds were now pleasing as incense. Okay? One of the ingredients of the incense offered up in the Holy Temple was derived from the blood of a non-kosher animal. This fact demonstrates the incense's unique capability to elevate even entities on the lowest rung of spirituality to the highest of holiness. Hagar is therefore compared to the incense because her return to Abraham and the path of truth after having lapsed into idolatry mirrors this unique characteristic of the temple's incense. Isn't that interesting? So the incense unique capability. So it says here, the temple, one of the ingredients offered in the holy temple, Keturah, was derived from the blood of a non-kosher animal. So even in the fragrant incense, there was an element of something non-kosher, so that it would have the power spiritually to elevate that which is non-kosher. Kaylin Robb said, I'm ignorant about U.S. history, LOL. To that point, I was saying on November the 11th, which is Veterans Day here in the United States, I made a little, somewhat of a tongue-in-cheek comment that we should include all veterans all over the world. And then later that evening, I learned something that I did not know, or maybe I knew it and forgot it, but it doesn't matter. I just assume I didn't know it. And that was that November 11th was not always Veterans Day in the United States. That originally in the 50s, up until the 1950s, it was Armistice Day, when World War I ended, which apparently occurred on the 11th day, at the 11th hour of the 11th month. That's when World War I ended, and it was called Armistice Day. And so later, the United States changed our observance of and celebration of Armistice Day to Veterans Day, where we recognized veterans. So upon hearing, and now, see, I was ignorant of that fact, and I admit that I was ignorant. I did not know that. No shame, right? But now I'm educated, and therefore I'm no longer ignorant. Okay, see, isn't that beautiful, right? You can be happy. You don't understand this topic because you're just ignorant. Well, you're just so mean. If you weren't so mean. No, I want to help you because you're ignorant. I want to help you so that you don't be ignorant anymore. Isn't that great? So now I was helped. Having been enlightened, then Veterans Day should be really an international celebration of all veterans, to include those from the British Empire and France and, whoever else, Australia, South Africa. Why? Because it's about World War I. You see? Isn't that great? You're welcome. Again, this is why you come to the Aliyah Day, so that you can learn these kinds of things and be blessed. Now, he marries Hagar, and so let's look at what Ma'am Loez has to say about this particular topic, about Abraham and his remarriage. Abraham once again married a woman. Her name was Keturah. The Torah teaches us that even a man who had children while he was young should be remarried when he is old. So, pause. Marriage, from the Jewish point of view, is not just about procreation, which means also that marriage is not just about physical desire, which is what Paul talked about. But it says here, the Torah teaches us that even a man who had children while he was young should be married when he is old. He does not know which of his children will be virtuous and God-fearing. God therefore told Abraham to remarry Hagar. He said, "Do not think that it would be sinful to do so. Be assured that she will be extremely virtuous and modest. Do not call her Hagar any longer. From now on, her name shall be called Keturah, because her deeds will be pleasing as the fragrance of incense," or Keturah. It is taught that after Abraham drove Hagar away, that she reverted to the immoral ways of her people. Later, she repented. She made teshuvah, however, and then therefore changed her name. So in this case, Hagar repented, came back to the ways of God, and subsequently changed her name to Keturah as a designation of the fact that she had repented. She avoided sexual immorality and did not defile herself with any other man. Now, God told Abraham, "I want you to remarry, even though you are at an extremely high spiritual level, and you no longer think about the worldly stuff at all." Not to satisfy, I don't want you to get married, it says here, to satisfy your sexual desires. They no longer have any meaning to you. But I want you to publicize my greatness, to let people know that I can perform miracles and change the course of nature. When you were young, you could not have children. Now that you are 140 years old, you will have many children. So in this case, with respect to Abraham, this remarriage was really just more of the evangelical nature of Abraham's life. God has the power to change nature. Now, to us, when we read that, we probably think to ourselves, well, of course God has the power to change nature. Well, ladies and gentlemen, in the ancient world, and I say the ancient world, but really this applies to our modern day as well. In the ancient world, ladies and gentlemen, people believed that the the various elements of nature were independent powers. The sun was a power, the moon was a power. Some believe the oceans were a power. That's where you have Neptune and so forth. And then the various stars were independent powers. The Arabs worshiped the dust. And so the idea was that, the God himself, did not control nature. Another point of view was that God kind of initiated the universe and then he went on vacation. Basically, he's not involved in it. He left it to the intermediaries, such as the sun, the moon, and so forth. Well, that same idea exists even today. It's changed slightly in that everything is left up to fate and to chance and coincidence. Everything is natural causes. Rabbi Stan and I read an insight recently from Rabbi Twersky, that talks about the fact that God oftentimes conceals his working, his miraculous activity. He conceals it under the guise of natural cause and effect. And the reason he does this is so that it will enhance our bitikon, so that we, as Jews and God-fearers, will look at an event and say, no, that was no coincidence. That was actually God working. So therefore, we put our trust in God. It's an opportunity for us to credit God, even though we could potentially just say, well, it was just natural that happened. Okay, so here, this marriage to Keturah is really Abraham's opportunity to just continue to spread the good news that God works miracles and that he can change nature and that God is not subject to nature. Just because this is naturally what happens doesn't mean that it's naturally what happens to you. You and I, as people of HaShem who are taking hold of Torah, we're not subject to the laws of nature. In the sense that, what I mean, let me rephrase that. Are we subject to the laws of nature? Yes. What I mean is that we're not enslaved, let's put it that way, to the laws of nature. God has the opportunity to change nature for our sakes. Yeah, John, I know you appreciate Rabbi Twersky's teachings. We do too. We have many of his books. He wrote a lot, and we have many of his books. And Rabbi Twersky himself was a trained psychiatrist, board certified, B-O-A-R-D. I'm board certified, but it's B-O-R-E-D. But I did learn a lot of my psychology from Rabbi Twersky, in a sense. It says, when a mortal king gives a friend a gift, he usually adds something to it each year. The additional gift, however, is much smaller than the original one. When God gives a gift, his additions to it can be much greater than the original gift. God's original gift to Abraham was a single son. The additional gift was many children. Logically, Abraham should have married Keturah before Isaac married Rebekah. Isaac went to get Keturah before Rebekah arrived. Even if both women came at the same time, Abraham should have married first out of respect for his age and greatness. This teaches us proper conduct. If a man is a widower with a grown son, he should first see that his son marries. Only then should he himself marry. We learn this from Abraham. Okay. Now let's look at Rabbi Monk's commentary here and see what he has to say about this topic. So it says, Abraham proceeded and took a wife. From this we learn that a husband bereaved of his wife will marry off his children and afterwards remarry. We learn this in the Midrash. This is what Rabbi Monk brings down. For even if a widower has fulfilled the commandment to procreate, Rabbinic law stipulates that he is not to remain without a wife, lest he come to have impure thoughts. Okay? Moreover, it is fitting to continue the duty of procreation, just as Abraham continued, Vayosef, despite his advanced age, and in so doing, bring more children into the world than he had before. This is in connection to what our sages have said in the Council of Ecclesiastes: in the morning of your life sow your seed, in the evening withhold not your hand, for you know not which will prosper, whether this or that. Perhaps they will both be equally good. Now, let me just say here that if you read the letters of Paul, particularly in 1 Corinthians 7, where Paul has this schizophrenic rant about marriage, if you read 1 Corinthians 7, if you can walk away from that with some type of, well, let me rephrase. I was going to say if you can walk away with that with some type of cognitive or coherent, I should say, understanding of what Paul's trying to say, then you would be a medical miracle. But I say that in my head, I can hear the Christians say, "Oh, it makes perfect sense to me." But that's only because, you're grading on a curve. But anyway, I digress. If you read 1 Corinthians 7, it's an incoherent, schizophrenic rant about marriage. And basically what Paul says is that you shouldn't get married unless, of course, you're burning with lust. But otherwise, you should stay single. So if you are married, the only reason you are married is because you're just, a lust-filled, vagrant. And that's really the only reason to get married. That's actually what it says, literally. But I bring this up to point out that is the precise opposite of what Judaism teaches. And this is why when people say that Paul was a learned, a learned Pharisee or whatever, it's like, where's the evidence of that? Because Pharisaical Judaism taught that a man should not remain single. Okay, for lots of reasons, companionship, as it says here, for the sake of purity and pure thoughts and so forth and so on, procreation. The idea that a man, particularly a young man, should not get married is absurd. It's ridiculous, and by the way, unnatural. It says, whose name was Keturah. Another name, Keturah being here, another name for Hagar, as Rashi explains. Now, Ramban held a different opinion. It's worth noting that Ramban held the opinion, and apparently Rabbi Bachya did this, Rabbeinu Bachya as well. They held that Keturah was not, in fact, Hagar. They're kind of outliers on that opinion, but they hold that she was just yet another woman. But again, most commentators and the most ancient sources, such as the Midrash, disagree with that point of view. It says Abraham's remarriage in the latter days of his life was but the continuation, Vayosef, in a new form of the task to which he had been devoted his entire existence, which was the propagation of the belief in God. By virtue of his missionary spirit, reinforced by extraordinary intelligence and eloquence, and through his love of others, his kindness and his hospitality, Abraham had succeeded in converting entire nations to his ideals. Now, with Isaac's marriage ensuring that the whole of his spiritual heritage would continue in perpetuity, Abraham undertook to form new generations. Now, to be sure, less imbued with the spirit and his ideal than Isaac, the son of his wife Sarah, but nevertheless capable of carrying his divine message to still other pagan peoples. And so, as soon as they grew up, Abraham sent these children to far-off lands of Asia. So basically what's saying here is that these children born to Abraham, well, with Keturah, that when they became of age, he sent them to be Shilachim. He sent them out, he sent them away so that they could go on missionary trips to various areas in order to establish the belief of HaShem in those areas. So we see that here that Judaism, from its inception, was very evangelical. He was aware that these children, okay, born of foreign mothers, could not be messengers of his doctrine in all of its purity. But still, he understood that the first rays of light which they would carry to these regions, still spiritually in darkness, would gradually disperse the shadows of night to make way for the radiant brightness of truth. The one who had known so many disappointments in his missionary activity, even with those very close to him, never let himself be overcome by feelings of discouragement. Boy, isn't that true? You know, I don't know about you, but I can very much relate to that sentence. The one who has known so many disappointments in his missionary activity, even with those very close to him, never let himself be overcome by feelings of discouragement. Man, that sentence for me personally hits home. Because in all of my years, there have been so many that have come through these doors or online, and, well, how do you say it? They were a bust. Let's put it that way. They were a bust. I don't know how else to say it. At least not at this juncture. And some of those were people who, were close to me, close to us. And the temptation to feel discouraged is real. Is real, very real. I was talking to Yochanan and Tirza there. They have a lot of experience in the mining community, because in South Africa it's a big mining industry. And Yochanan was telling me and Rabbi Zine that they sort through the elements, the dirt, the stone, the ore, in these gold mines. In order to extract the gold, you have to melt away the rock. And frankly, I learned a lot. I was ignorant about the mining process, and I listened to someone who has worked in that industry, and as a result, he pushed back the frontiers of ignorance in my life, and I'm better for it. You see how that works? I didn't pretend with Yochanan that I know all things about mining. I did not know that gold mining was like that. I thought you go into a mine and you're chipping away, and all of a sudden there's a big old block of gold, and you take it, put it in your pocket, and retire. But apparently, the gold is embedded in the rock, in the ore, and you have to basically melt away, as I understand it, melt away the rock in order to get the gold, to extract the gold. And he was telling me that, and I forget the numbers, so I'm going to just paraphrase, and I could be wrong on the specifics, but you could go through tons and tons and tons of ore, melting away the stone, the rock, what have you, and just walk away with maybe a few pounds of gold. And Yochanan can educate us on what the standard ratios are. But the point being is that within this great tonnage, there's just a minute amount of gold that's in there, but you've got to go through it. Otherwise, you can't get the gold. There's no way to do it otherwise. And that's really what it's like to witness to people. We've had a lot of stone come through this ministry, and we've done our best to melt those stony hearts and draw them near to the true Messiah and to Torah, and to extract the gold. And unfortunately, there's a lot more stone than there is gold. But we are not to lose heart. We're not to become discouraged, because that's what we're in the business for. The miners don't get discouraged when they pull out the tons of ore and there's not a whole lot of gold. That's the process. That's the process, is what I'm trying to say. And even in the church world, now I don't know about, I have not been in the church world in a couple of decades. But even back in those days, if you had a church of, let's say, 5,000 people, it's massive church, or 10,000 even, but let's just say 5,000, big old mega church. Everybody knew, including the top echelons of the leadership of that church, everybody knew that you were lucky if 2% of the people in that church were true believers. That would be a large number. You were fortunate if that were the case. And that's a fact. And so even then, you say, well, yeah, you got 5,000 people there. You think they're all real Christians? You think they're all really dedicated to God? You're in delusion. They're not. And that's normal. You say, well, that was for that church. No, I'm telling you right now, I knew pastors from every walk of life, from every denomination, and every one of them said the same thing. Didn't matter if it was Pentecostal, full gospel, Shantamahata, or Baptist, where they pretended not to drink, or Methodist, where they were Catholics with a filter on it. It doesn't matter. It was all the same. So yeah, Abraham knew a lot of disappointments. Think about all the people that Abraham preached to who never turned to the true God. Think about all the people that Yeshua preached to who never turned to the true God. But we're not to get discouraged. Vayosef Avraham. Abraham continued. I've said Vayosef several times. Does that sound familiar? Yosef? Vayosef, the word is Yosef. So there's a clue there about the importance of Yosef and Moshiach ben Yosef. Vayosef Avraham. Abraham continued, thus becomes the motto of his life. Abraham continued, Vayosef Avraham. These two words serve to introduce the chapter which relates Abraham's death. They contain the message which he addressed to all his descendants from beyond the grave. Abraham's perseverance triumphed over all the obstacles and ultimately won over humanity to the truth of monotheism. End of our Aliyah today. Thank you so much. May we continue in our effort to bring the light of the Messiah and the beauty of Torah-true Judaism in Messiah to the world. And may we not get discouraged with all the stony hearts that aren't willing to be transformed into gold. As I've said before, maybe we've gotten them to concede a particular point, and maybe that will just illuminate their hearts one day. Shabbat shalom to all of you. Thank you so much for being a part of the program all week. I look forward to seeing you all in synagogue tomorrow, either online or in person, as we dive back into the story of Jacob and Esau. Until then, may you have a great day. Shabbat shalom. Have a great Erev tonight. May today be for you a day of good news and good fortune. We'll look forward to seeing you all mañana. Shalom aleichem, and be richly blessed.